Why taking Social Security early provides the greater spousal benefit? What? What? Are you going crazy, Josh? Someone has sent this to me. I forgot the dude's name, but good article. Actually, I appreciate this guy. Go Curry Cracker. Sounds racist. Sounds like he's a white Indian. Curry, get it? Indian, cracker, white. Now that was funny. I don't care what you say. That was fun. My t-shirt's on Inside Out. Ooh, side note. I am fully done with my course. The people on Locals got first access to it. All right, so I'm just waiting, getting I got a little bit of positive feedback so far, so I'm waiting for a little bit more feedback from the Locals crew. Who, if you want to join Locals, we went live last night, and it's fun, man. 2 hours of just bull crapping and having fun, good times, drinking beers, smoking cigarettes, and just having good old times on Locals. So you can see the Locals link in the doobly doo. But the course is just about ready. I'll probably put it out this weekend, as a matter of fact, and I am stoked. Everything you need to know about investing. Part 2. Just while I'm yapping, I'm going to turn off the, for any new enrollees for my retirement planning course. I'll turn that off by probably in a couple weeks here. So if you want to enroll in that, do that ASAP because I'm going to turn it off here in about 2 weeks. The people who've already enrolled, and there's a number of you guys, the people who've already enrolled will have access to it, but just no more new retirees. It's getting dated. That information is getting dated. And the next course I'm going to work on is Obamacare and Roth conversions because I was just talking to a guy today. I was like, man, just 2 people today. It's like, this guy's just talking to you right now, both actually from North Carolina. Isn't that weird? And this guy crushes. Both those guys crush, actually. But anyway, it's just like, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to Obamacare, qualified dividend income, Roth conversions and stuff. And it's just, so that's going to be my next course, just navigating Obamacare and Roth conversions. All right, and I got something in my eye. Is my eye red? Do I got pink eye? I don't think I have pink eye. I know, but I got a freaking eye thing in there. What's those called? These things? Eyelash? Ugh, you ever get an eyelash in your eye? It hurts. All right. So let's read my man's article here. Go Curry, the White Indian. Why early Social Security provides the greatest spousal benefit. And I want to share with you something. I don't disagree with his numbers, his methodology, not in the least. He's making a critical mistake that all people do. I tell you, it's a critical mistake. And I'm not arguing with the methodology. I'm not in the least. The mistake is big though, and I'm going to share this with you. All right, and I hope you guys can see the mistake. Look at these old uniforms, old Atlanta Hawks shirt. What's that right there? I'm not sure. I love the old school stuff. I just went to a Facebook and they have like an old AFL Facebook group, American Football League. Oh man. All right, so what he's going to do here. I previously outlined why I plan to collect Social Security as early as possible. All right, more money later is no match for less money early. More money later is no match for less money early, just dumped into an index fund, no matter how long I live. Okay, I don't quite understand that. I guess he's saying, hey, whatever. Okay, maybe you guys can explain it to me. More money, I guess, bird in the hand's better than 2 in the bush, I guess is what he's saying. Maybe, okay. Let's see, but it isn't just me that is affected by this decision. As many pointed out in the comments of that post, the odds are good that you have heard people say, I'm glad my spouse and I delayed collecting. Since their death, I have been collecting a bigger number, which is better than collecting a smaller number. And this guy says, but the question is not, do you want a smaller or larger number after my death? The question is, do you want a larger income or a smaller income and a giant pile of cash? Okay, so, let's draw this up here real quick. So basically, and this is similar to what I do in my course. Yeah, I don't have an upside down shirt though, but I do have the mic right here for good audio, and I do have my whiteboard. So he's saying for simplicity, you can have, $2,000 a month, and we'll just say $500,000 for simplicity, or you can have $4,000 a month. Right? That's what his argument is here, and it's a good argument. I'm not going to lie. He's just again making a big mistake. All right. So do you want a larger income, the $4,000 a month, or do you want a smaller income with a giant pile of cash? He's not saying 500,000. I'm just using that for an example. Where does the pile of cash come? Via investing the Social Security income received during the 8-year period between 62 and 70, and then investing into an index fund. So he's put $2,000 a month into an index fund. That's $24,000 a year over 8 years, whatever that is. I don't have my calculator, but $24,000 a year. That's roughly $200,000 essentially. All right, so that's kind of what he's saying here. Then this is weird where the term life insurance policy. The power can even be bigger with a term life insurance policy. My man Mike emailed me today about life insurance for older people. Dude, it's hard to get a life insurance as you age. It is. The risk to the insurance company is greater, which means the cost to you is greater. The cost of insurance is greater. It's going to be tough to get, if you're 68, 69, 70, it's going to be tough to get a term life insurance policy that's not prohibitively expensive. I'm not saying you can't apply, you can't try, but I'm just telling you right now, if you have a term policy from 20 years ago, that sucker is going to expire. If you have a term policy from 55, it's going to be tough to make that guy cheap. Let's just put it that way. And if you're in your late 60s, it's going to be tough to get a life insurance policy. That was kind of weird. I don't agree with that at all. But anyway, but I get what he's saying. By definition, if you can choose to delay Social Security, you can choose to invest it rather than spend it if you take it earlier. Okay, we are doing this for the good of our spouse after all. After 8 years of such investment, we would accumulate $100,000 based on a typical inflation investment returns with a PIA of $1,000. For easy math, my PIA is $3,000, and so we would have accumulated $300,000. No, you're wrong. Your PIA, if it's $3,000, if you take Social Security early, your benefit won't be $3,000. I mean, I was surprised by that. It's kind of a rookie's mistake here. He says my PIA is $3,000, so we would have accumulated $300,000 because he's saying if you had a PIA of $1,000, he would have accumulated $100,000. But it's just not true because if you take Social Security at 62, you don't get your PIA. You get your PIA minus 32%, I think is what it is. So that's odd. I mean, but that's not. But his gist of the argument is still right. I'm telling you. Now, the larger delayed benefit income starts to turn the curve around and at some point breaks even. Of course, that happens after 25 years. All right, so he's saying if you invest your money, all right, and you're 62, it'll be 62 plus 25, 87, according to what his rate of return is going to be. You'll be 87 before you get that break-even point for delaying Social Security. I absolutely agree with that. Again, I want to point this out. So he's saying we take this $2,000 a month and we invest it versus $4,000 a month. All right, so by the time the $2,000 a month plus the investment money, that'll grow until we're 87 years old when finally the $4,000 a month becomes more than that, if that makes sense. And that's not a very good graph, but you get the gist. So actually it'd be the other way around. Actually it should be like this. It should be the $2,000 a month, that's what it should be, would be paying more until about 87 when the $4,000 a month will finally supplant that when you factor in the $2,000 a month plus the invested money. I completely agree with that, 100%. And I'm going to share with you where he makes a mistake, though. And then he said inflation, so he basically saying a break-even point could be 17 years, it could be 27 years, something like that is kind of what he's saying, depending on what kind of rate of return you get investments. In fact, he makes a good point right here, a great point. He goes, even with a 0% investment return, cash is sitting under the table, under the mattress, the break-even point is 17 years. So even if you don't get any investment on your money and your return on your money, your break-even point would be basically 80 years old. So what, 62 to 17, 80, 79 years old. Even if you get no return on your money, right? Good point. He's making a good point. All this is right. These are absolutely right. He's spot on here. All right. All this is good stuff. All right, let's keep going. Assuming this is for the benefit of the spouse, 9% of women and 15% of men who are alive at 62 will die at age 70, a fairly small number. All right, my spouse will still be alive in 8 years, seems reasonable to the delay, says what he's arguing against that. But the number increases to 60% of deceased for women and 71% at age 87 when waiting for Social Security to break even when we have a normal rate of return. So at 100%, most spouses will be dead well before 87. You're dead, all right? So he's saying, hey, if you're expecting a break even rate at 87, that's great, except for the fact that the vast majority of spouses will be dead by then, so you would have been better off with $2,000, a lower benefit, and X amount of dollars in cash, as opposed to a higher benefit and no amount of money in cash. These are all 100% correct, 100% correct. All right, assuming the benefit, but that number increases, we talk about that. All right, so maybe all this is okay. We delay Social Security for a greater spousal benefit in case where we die, inflation is higher, our spouse outlive it. Okay, that's fine. But anyway, so then he goes investing for long-term spousal benefit. In the most likely scenario, my wife will substantially outlive me. She's 5 years younger, has good genes, has an optimistic and joyful demeanor. Securing her financial future is a strong priority. To do that, I need to understand what our joint Social Security income looks prior to my death and what her individual Social Security income looks after. Fortunately, this is easy to do as I plot the scenarios. Okay, so let's keep going. We can think of the survival benefit as just the higher earning spouse living longer, okay? But then he says, if we can get a greater return on investment elsewhere, then delay never comes out ahead. If we can get a greater return on investment elsewhere, 7% real, the delay never comes ahead. And I completely agree with that. Basically saying if I can get a 10, essentially, if you can get a regular rate, even a 5% rate of return, it's going to be tough for your spouse to outlive and most spouses won't. It'll be tough for your spouse to outlive the break-even point. And so along those lines, he's 100% correct. He's saying the vast majority of spouses will be dead before they break even with a very low rate of return. And they won't have access to a bunch of capital. All right, so where he's making the mistake, all right, so I just want to look. I just want you to see this. A 3% real rate of return with no volatility is a nice thing. To get it, we just need to have a guaranteed loss. I didn't get that. I'm waiting. Oh, because I want to show what he says here. It's pretty interesting. I like this point he made. It's a good point. I'll see if I can't find it. Going back to this, even with a 0% investment rate of return, cash is sitting in a mattress. The break-even point is 17 years. A fun data point: there's no historical 20-year period in which the S&P return was negative. Okay, so by delaying Social Security, the 20-year return is virtually guaranteed to be negative. It's confusing there, but what he's saying is we've had no 20-year return where you got no return on your S&P 500. And I don't argue that at all. I'm not going to sit there and say, that's wrong. 100% right. All these things are right. So why am I arguing against it? Because typically, he's making a mistake, not typically, because he's making a typical mistake. We'll just say a 7% real return. That's net of inflation. I start down here, and I end up here. When I die, that was 7% real return. That's what I averaged. When I die, my wife gets $500,000. All right, that's what we say, which is more than $4,000 a month as a spousal benefit. But what is the problem with this right here? What's the problem? The market doesn't work like that. The market goes like this. You see what I'm saying? Where we have massive losses. Massive losses. And this is my whole problem with stocks for the long run. Stocks for the long run says you'll get a 7%, 8%, 9%, it doesn't matter, real return. You can use an earnings risk premium. I don't like that, but either way. But in any year, when you need the money, you could be sitting down here. Remember, top to bottom in October 07 to March 9th, 09, you were down 57% in the S&P 500, top to bottom. So that $500,000 now is worth $200,000 roughly. You're down 57%. It actually might be worth less than that. So if we look at a $200,000, when is the break even there? Is it 81? If we retire, because people did die on March 9th, 2009. People did die. And if they were using this guy's strategy, not only did they die, but their spouse had $300,000 less. And that's probably, I'm probably giving him the benefit of the doubt, saying $500,000. Where's I don't have my calculator. It's over there. I'm not going to do it. But if you did $2,000 a month for 8 years, let's say $2,000 a month for you're at 62. You did $2,000 a month for 30 years. I have no clue what that'd be. But let's just say it's $500,000. Secondly, do you really think you're going to invest that money? I don't. But anyway, keep it for whatever. That's not an argument I want to make. Then we had January 00 to Q1 2003. The market was down 9, 12, 22, and another 10% in 2003. And I don't know off the top of my head what that top to bottom was here, but let's just say 50%. Someone died right here. Likely to happen to you? Man, I don't know. But someone did. It's just a fact, Jack. Now, you can make an argument 73, 74. Top to bottom is 44%. You could also make an argument, yeah, but what if you died up here? Yeah, that's true. That's the risk. That's the risk you're taking. The volatility of the markets is no different than the 4% rule, which I've destroyed and before. And again, as always, I got to say, I love me some Bill Bengen, 100%. But the 4% rule is flawed based on similar things that you're spending each and every year increases with inflation. There's no evidence of that at all. The problem is when you look at these average rates of return, again, the stocks for the long run, it always forgets these bottom out things. It always does. And then we can look at like Japan. You know what I'm saying? Japan from 1991 to 2012 was just freaking rock bottom, dude. So now we say, okay, what if we don't get 7% real return? What if we get 2% real return? Does that reduce the volatility? Well, did it reduce the volatility for Japan? So now instead of getting 500,000, we get 350 because we have a lower rate of return. I mean, it's better than zero. Does that reduce these chances to happen? It doesn't. But the Federal Reserve would come in. I mean, we had a Greenspan put. It was back in the 90s, they called it. That Greenspan would do whatever it took to keep the bottom from bottoming out. And yet we still had this, we still had that. You know, don't forget, we still had in 2020. It was down 33%. Someone died in March of 2020. You know, 2022 is down 25%. Someone died in 2022. And again, it ended up only down 18%, but in the top to bottom is down 25%. Don't forget, every year, JP Morgan does this. I think I might have, I'm not going to find it. But anyway, you know, the average top to bottom on any given year is about 14%. I mean, that's just a fact. Someone dies when it happens. So this is good in theory if we can get a 7% rate of return fixed with no downside risk. Maybe index annuities would be something to look at in that regard. But it's not good in reality when we have these bottoms that fall out. It's just, that's the problem. If you're willing to take the risk, more power to you. I'm not willing to take that risk because I don't trust that market as far as I could kick it. I just don't. Netflix is way up. Your freaking PE ratio is like 50. I'm like, who's buying that stock? Well, don't you know? I'm like, yeah, I know you're paying $50 for $1 of earnings. I talk a lot about that in my course. So yes, that you could be on this side of things in love and life. You could be on this side of things in love and life. I want to make sure my wife isn't on this side of things. I want to make sure. I want to make sure that she's saying, you know something? I'm getting the max Social Security for the risk. You have to look at the risk versus the reward. For me, the risk here and there to leave my wife, freaking, $200,000 with a small Social Security benefit, $2,000 a month, they ain't getting the job done for me. I'd be much more happier to leave her with a bigger Social Security, knowing that that is also cost of living adjusted as well. And it's also tax beneficial too. That's just a fact. Now, if you're leaving this money in a brokerage account, it's still quite tax preferential to your spouse, but Social Security is still taxed better. Just a fact. Anyway, I take huge issue with this thing. And I get if this guy wants to do it, more power to him. I got no qualm. Not saying he's dumb. Not in the least. A very good argument. The argument always overlooks, though, the bottom falling out. And when the bottom falls out at the most inopportune time. See, that's the thing. I've been doing this as a professional for years, and I've seen it happen. Where the bottom falls out on people, and you're like, man, can't have that happen. Just like Warren Buffett says, rule number 1 in investing is don't lose money. Rule number 2, just make sure no one's texting me. What's rule number 2? See rule number 1. And we just don't want to lose money just because you happen to be born in the wrong day or die in the wrong day. All right. Love your thoughts. God bless. We'll see you.